Hello YouTube, it's Mike here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we are doing another Kaiju Braid chapter review. Today we are reviewing chapter 42. Now, as always, we're going to have a news section, a recap section, then we're going to do the discussion, and then we're going to do some theories. I have two kind of theories, although they're not really theories, they're more like just talking points that aren't necessarily discussion bits, that kind of tie into what I think is going to happen later. And yeah, so there's no news today, sadly. I haven't actually been keeping up with the manga's Twitter, and I actually haven't kept up with the Kaiju Braid subreddit either, so I don't actually know if there's any news. But I did notice that they updated the title on the chapter pages. Now it has like the really ugly chalkboard looking font instead of like whatever I had before. I think it was just a generic Kaiju number 8 with a red 8. They changed it to like the English version now, and I don't like how it looks, but whatever, I'll get used to it, I guess. I really wish they would have went with a more kind of military looking design to it, right? Because it's like a futuristic military, a very kind of like angular font would have made a lot of sense. I don't know why they went with this really weird like chalkboard teacher writing on the board type of font, but it's whatever. So yeah, that's the news section. I didn't really have anything to talk about there. Now the recap here, as always, you guys can watch the previous chapter review up there or up there, wherever the stupid card is. I never remember, but you guys can watch it, or you can watch the whole playlist if you want. I do a lot of reviews for Kaiju Braid, a lot of other things as well. I've done a few other videos, but you can watch it. It's at the end of the video. There's a big title screen that shows up with all of the previous videos. But the recap here is basically that in the previous chapter, chapter 41, Shinomiya goes to get Narumi, right? And she's trying to get him to kind of go practice with them, because apparently he doesn't go practice, which sounds like not a good thing, but Narumi's character is all about being like a badass effortlessly, right? So, and not really being a badass. So I guess it makes sense, but I don't know. She goes to get him, and then they have a little gag about money and the fact that he doesn't have self-control and he spent all of it when he shouldn't have, which is kind of funny, kind of not. I mean, it's whatever. It's kind of funny, but it's really not that funny either. So I don't know. I thought it was like okay, like it wasn't really bad, but it wasn't amazing either. And then as they're kind of fighting, I guess, or like interacting, a call comes in and tells them, you know, they have to suit up. There's a sortie to be fought. They have to go save some people, right? And then we get to see Narumi crash on top of this giant ant kaiju as he saves a bunch of kids. He tells them to use their mom's phone to say Narumi is an awesome captain 10 times. And then he tells Kikoru and Kafka that he expects results, right? In a very kind of normal way for him. He gets really serious when he's fighting. And that's basically where the chapter ends. And yeah, so the review and discussion section is up next. And chapter 42 has 25 pages, which is not bad. I think we are getting slightly more pages than usual, but like not that many. So I don't think the thing really is that different, even though we did get that change. And yeah, so the chapter starts with Kafka and Kikoru at like slightly different locations. I think Kikoru's in the east and Kafka's in the west side of the city. And what they're doing is that they're preparing mentally for their battle, right? Kikoru's just chilling. She's like super badass as she always is. And Kafka's, you know, remembering what he was told by Mr. Shinomiya and the rest of the Kaiju Defense Force top brass, right? He has to be useful. He has to do something. Otherwise, they're gonna kill him, right? And yeah, so the ant kaiju are getting corralled by the rest of the division. They're getting put into different areas, right? They're gonna be corralled into the east kill zone and the west kill zone, and Kikoru's in the east one. And eventually they do get corralled into these kill zones, and Kikoru enters the fray. She shows up, she opens the door, and then she like grabs her axe and she powers up, and we get this really cool like Dragon Ball Z effect around her, like the really cool killer intent slash energy bursting around her kind of thing. As she activates her power, she doesn't actually say an activation sequence like she usually would. I think we're kind of moving away from that, but she powers up, and she just goes to town. She like literally is there, and then the next moment she's chopping an ant kaiju in half with her giant axe, right? And she's doing this as whoever is in charge of the platoons tells Shinonome, a new female character who's in charge of a platoon, to act as backup for Kikoru, right? And basically Kikoru doesn't need backup. She's like killing kaiju left and right. And she stuns the rest of the platoon, or the division actually, which I thought was interesting because it provides, this sense that Kikoru is ridiculously overpowered even for Division 1, but it also shows this kind of lack of, discipline from these guys. And it's kind of ridiculous because like they're fighting giant monsters. They should not be, having problems like this of getting distracted when there's obviously like problems with that, right? Like you get distracted, you die. That's just how it works, right? If you're in a war setting, if you're fighting giant monsters, and the fact that they get distracted so often and they have enough time to chit chat and be like, oh my God, she's so good, she's so powerful. Are you sure this is her first year? And like talking about how she's better than Narumi already and stuff like that kind of works to build her character, but it kind of destroys the credibility of these characters. Now, these characters are rather irrelevant, so it doesn't really matter, but it is kind of like a little nitpick that would have not really bothered me usually, but today I just like noticed it, and then it started bothering me because it's like, oh, come on, man, this is like key building of like characters and developing this serious atmosphere and setting, and you're just ruining it because they have enough time to chit chat, right? So I don't know, I kind of didn't like it, but I also kind of understand what it's supposed to be doing anyway, so it's fine. And eventually Kikoru ends up killing another kaiju, and she meets up with Shinonome, and she tells her, hey, you need to watch your back, there's a lot of kaiju around you. And Shinonome is like, damn, this girl's cocky, I like that. And then they stand back to back, and Shinonome has a giant Gatling gun and Kikoru has her axe, and they're killing the kaiju off, right? Which is pretty cool. I actually really liked it. I thought it was really fun. And then Kafka even cheers, right? And he's like, oh, Kikoru, atta girl, and yeah, that's basically it. And then Narumi is talking. He's like curious about why the kaiju are acting different from how they usually do, right? And it's like, it's really odd. Ant kaiju, and this is a very good little bit of world building. Ant kaiju are only underground. They don't actually show up very often. They rarely are seen unless, they're tunneling deep underground. So this is showing us that kaiju actually live in Earth, like inside the Earth, right? So maybe this is a kind of a hidden world kind of thing, like Journey to the Center of the Earth, that kind of genre here. It's very interesting because it shows that kaiju come from all different places on Earth, and they aren't really aliens, or they might be aliens, but ancient ones that lived deep in the underground of the Earth, which I think is really cool. But yeah, he's talking about how they don't really do this, and so it makes no sense that they would out of nowhere. And then, they kind of come to the conclusion that it might be because there's a big bad, kaiju roaming the area. But given that they don't see or feel any of his presence, this aura that they can kind of register, they kind of put it off their minds. They're like, okay, we'll just keep killing the kaiju and figure out what's going on. And well, yeah, that basically happens. And then we get more kaiju corralled in the west section, where Kafka is slated to go and interact with them. And Kafka is being watched by the top brass. They're all, zeroed in on him, kind of trying to see if he's going to be worth it or not. And Kafka tries to partially transform. He changes his arm, and he tries to hit the kaiju, but the kaiju doesn't die. Usually Kafka is so powerful, even with like only a finger, that he could easily kill any low-level grunt type of kaiju. But the fact that he can is actually quite concerning. And even Kafka's surprised by this. He's like, oh, I guess I can't do it with a partial transformation. And he starts to kind of think that he shouldn't transform in a very kind of easy, clear to understand little bit, that he's afraid of losing control once again. He's lost confidence in his ability to transform because, he almost killed Mr. Shinomiya, chapter 36 or 37. And he's like, no, wait, never mind. I have to do this. I have to transform because my life is on the line. I have to protect everyone, right? And so as soon as he's starting to transform, he's starting to get the energy particles and the scales are coming up his face. He kind of like shocks. He kind of like stops. It breaks, right? The concentration breaks, and there's this effect of like all of his scales popping off. And then he gets whammied in the face. He just gets thrown into a wall, right? And he can't transform. His transformation didn't work, and we don't know why, but I mean we can guess really easily why that is, right? It's a lack of confidence. He blocked himself mentally. And after that, another kaiju shows up. Everyone's kind of concerned. There's like, oh my god, there's this giant Honju level kaiju around. What the hell? And then out of the ground shows up an ant kaiju with this weird deformed kaiju number 9 on top of it. And that's crazy. That's so cool. It was so badass. The line thickness of that specific kaiju was so thick, so crazy. It really popped, and it really showed you that, he meant business, man. He was out here to kill Kafka. It was so badass, and that was the end of the chapter. And Narumi ends the chapter by saying there was another kaiju, right? And that's basically where it ends. Now, the two theories I have is that Kafka's issue is going to be the main focus of this next chapter, and I think it's going to kind of be important because Kafka needs to regain confidence. Like, I think Kafka's issue isn't necessarily his confidence, because I don't think he's ever really had that much to begin with, but it's rather the fear of his kaiju form. Before, he wasn't afraid of his kaiju form because his kaiju form allowed him to have power. It allowed him to do what he wanted to do, right? But now he's afraid of it. And so him and the kaiju aren't in sync anymore. And that's causing him problems, right? And so he has to get over his fear of himself. And in doing so, he's going to get confidence, right? And so that's kind of like the whole arc here. And I'm curious to see if this is going to be a recurring theme of Kafka gaining confidence and losing it again as a way to kind of power him up and depower him as necessary for the plotline to continue. Because this is a good kind of way to depower Kafka without making like a power crawl situation happen like in Dragon Ball, right? Because issues of confidence are something that happen to everyone, and especially Kafka, a 30-year-old that didn't get to achieve his dream and now gets a second chance, surrounded by 20-year-olds and 18-year-olds and teenagers. It makes sense that he would have a lot of moments of lack of confidence, right? And fear of uncertainties and like the difficulties of being so old compared to everyone else. Allows for Kafka's like powers to be removed as necessary. So I'm actually really happy with this. I think it's a really good development, and I'm curious to see how the manga here deals with it. Now the other thing is that we essentially get confirmation that kaiju number 9 is a fungus type kaiju, which is weird because we actually haven't gotten confirmation on kaiju number 9's kaiju type. Like kaiju number 10 was very clearly a dragon type kaiju, and Kafka is very clearly like this generic electricity nuclear power type kaiju, but we never actually understood what type of kaiju number 9 is. We've said that he's a hammerhead kaiju, and I've actually said quite a few times that he's a fungus or a mushroom type kaiju, and we get confirmation of that here because he essentially took over an ant kaiju, right? And there's a real world fungus that does this. I can't remember what it's called, and I think it's from Central America or Latin America, and like the Amazon. It's this fungus that kills ants and then takes over their bodies, and so it's like a zombie fungus, right? It's like zombie ants, and kaiju number 9 does this to an ant kaiju, and so kaiju number 9 is a fungus type kaiju. So that's very interesting. That's very cool, because we know that they have designations for all of these kaiju, but we never actually found kaiju number 9's designation, or maybe we have and I just forgot. But I mean, that's all there is. That was my theory section. It's not really a theory. It's more like things that I saw that I thought were interesting that weren't really discussion points. I don't know. Marketing is hard, so theories is better. So yeah, now that's basically it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. See you guys later.